all-knowing and all-powerful, starting with the elderly wolf uncle. Chapter 36. Catwoman quietly breathed a sigh of relief, and then stared at Chen Tian with cold eyes. As for Chen Tian himself, he was surprised that he actually ran into it so quickly. It's just that he didn't choose to expose the identity of the other party. Since you are an ally of Batman, you are welcome to join. Quote. And Catwoman was still worried about the evening, ignored the other party, and turned to look at Bruce. Are you sure that this little guy who doesn't look like his hair can keep up with us? Quote. Do you remember the other day when a gangster slaughtered more than 24 people? Bruce couldn't help but remind. You mean? When Catwoman heard this, she immediately understood what the other party meant, and couldn't help but take 2 steps back and look at Chen Tian with wide eyes. And she was afraid for a while in her heart. Today I provoked this guy who looks beautiful and thin, and now I tell her that the other party is a murderous maniac. Suddenly, Catwoman's body wrapped in tights couldn't help shaking twice. Okay. Let's not waste time, let's go. Chen Tian sensed her fear, felt funny, and immediately proposed. I didn't say anything. Bruce also smiled and glanced at Catwoman, and then took the lead in rushing towards the murder scene caused by the Riddler. Time continues to pass. Inside the underground parking lot of a Gotham government building, in front of the scrapped elevator door, police have completely cordoned off the scene. Detective Gordon was frowning, looking at the blood-stained elevator in front of him. At this time, Chen Tian and the others, who received the news, rushed here. The steel cable of the elevator broke, and the people inside fell sharply from a height. Gordon took a deep look at Chen Tian behind Bruce, and then said with a twinkle in his eyes, he killed 6 people at once. We don't have a clue so far. Bruce looked solemn when he heard this, and observed the mess around him. The crime scene where the 6 victims died tragically yesterday left no traces except for a few riddles that had no end to the end. He hadn't even figured out the motives of the Riddler, and he didn't have time to catch any clues. For a while, everyone at the scene fell into deep thought. Chen Tian, on the other hand, observed and walked around, his gaze sweeping over every corner of the scene. If you don't know how to investigate, don't destroy the scene at will. Catwoman looked at Chen Tian and couldn't help but complain. Chen Tian ignored her and turned to look at Gordon. What is the identity of the deceased? Quote. When Gordon heard this, he remembered the other party's performance when dealing with the birthday boy last time, and paused and spoke. The 6 people yesterday, including tonight's victims, are all politicians who have a decisive say in the Gotham government. Quote. As he spoke, he pointed to the ground in front of the elevator entrance, and at each murder scene, there are 3 riddles left. Quote. Chen Tian followed the position pointed by the other party and narrowed his eyes slightly. On the ground, lying quietly 3 riddles written crookedly by black paint. A diamond plate, a glowing billow, a place you will never leave. Where am I? It smells like green paint, pours out like purple paint, brushes on a white van, what is it? Single quote. Some people's nightmares, some people's saviors. My hand was cold and desperate, reaching for that warm heart. Single quote. At this time, Gordon looked serious and continued. Since last night, we have organized many people to solve and disassemble these words, but we have not been able to get accurate answers. Quote. He glanced at Chen Tian, who was in thought, and then added, I also can't figure out the motives of that Riddler to carry out this move. Quote. Just this matter, the entire Gotham Police Department was burned. They have not encountered such a difficult criminal for a long time, and the other party is very cautious and cannot find any clues on the spot. Even the surveillance footage did not find suspicious figures. Maybe I already know the answer. After a while, Chen Tian, who had already experienced some thought, his eyes flickered and slowly spoke. When the 3 people next to him heard this, their eyes focused on him. Chapter 45. Answers to 3 riddles. The next target is the mayor. The answer is simple, he has already told us the next goal. Inside the dimly lit underground car park. Chen Tian's voice was not heavy when he said this, but it clearly fell into the ears of everyone present. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on him. All the police in Gotham, and we spent a day, failed to analyze a result. You dare to say you know the answer just by looking at it? I don't believe it. Quote. Catwoman's eyes narrowed as she stared at Chen Tian, like a lonely cat full of disdain. As for the others, although they didn't say anything, the expressions on their faces also showed their suspicions about the teenager in front of them. The Riddler's next step will definitely be to attack government officials. Chen Tian was not affected by the atmosphere full of doubts about himself around him, and continued to speak smoothly. Wait for him to blurt out the last word. The atmosphere at the scene changed, and the expressions on everyone's faces became strange. I thought you really had some skills, whether I think you were just completely arrogant rather than confident. Isn't what you're saying obvious? As a result, you don't know the answer to the riddle. Catwoman appeared speechless, and the words were sharp in terms of opinions in her heart. Bruce and Gordon on the side were a little disappointed. Just now, the 2 really thought that Chen Tiangang could bring them a surprise and guess the answer. But open their mouths, neither Bruce nor Gordon said much. After all, together with themselves, they were like headless flies, and they couldn't find any clues. There is no position to accuse Chen Tian of anything. Don't worry, I'm not done yet. Seeing this, Chen Tian continued unhurriedly and slowly. The answer to the riddle is actually very simple. And the Riddler also puts his next goal in the answer to the riddle. When he said the back, his expression began to gradually become serious, and he paused word by word. His next target, the new mayor who will take office. Harvey Dent. Quote. The Riddler wants to drive the city completely crazy. This time, as Chen Tian's words fell, the atmosphere now changed abruptly again, becoming solemn and serious, and even the air became a little heavier. The riddler's next hands-on target is the new Mayor Harvey Dent. If this is the case, and he succeeds, Gotham will definitely be completely in chaos by then. Come to think of it, the expressions on the faces of everyone present did not seem relaxed. After all, just think about it casually and guess what the consequences will be if something happens. So, what's the answer to the riddle? Are you really sure? Bruce, who had been silent for a long time, looked at Chen Tian's eyes flickering and asked in a deep voice. If this matter is really as Chen Tian said, it will involve too much and will not allow the slightest sloppiness. Indeed, you can't make up your mind about the riddler's goals just because of your side of the story. Gordon took a deep look at Chen Tian. Although in his heart, because of Chen Tian's confidence and the other party's previous performance, he faintly felt that he believed what the other party said. But this kind of case, which may even involve the entire city, is not enough to use a few simple words from a mysterious teenager as evidence of action. When Chen Tian heard the questions of several people on the other side, he could understand their thoughts, and he didn't have the heart to smile. A diamond plate, a glowing fireplace, a place you never leave. Where am I? He uttered the first riddle and paused before answering, it's home. Quote, when the three heard the answer, it seemed reasonable to think about it. The place that will never leave, indeed, is only home. Chen Tian didn't stop and continued. It smells like green paint, poured out like purple paint, brushed on the white truck. What is it? White. Some people's nightmares, some people's saviors. My hand was cold and desperate, reaching for that warm heart. It was a nightmare. Chen Tian's gaze was like an ancient well, calmly swept over the few people in front of him, and slowly said all the answers to the three riddles. Home, white, nightmare. After hearing Chen Tian's answer, Bruce was stunned for a moment and chewed the answers to the three puzzles. The gaze is getting brighter and brighter. First chapter, previous chapter 36, 180.